The tipping point, how little things can make a big difference. Malcolm Gladwell. The power of context. 2. The idea of crime as an epidemic, it must be said. Epidemic is a little strange. We talk about epidemic of violence or crime wave, but it's not clear that we really believe that crime follows the same rules of epidemics as, say, Hoshi Puppies did or for Leverage Ride. Those epidemics involved relatively straightforward and simple things. A product and a message. Crime, on the other hand, crime isn't a single discrete thing, but a word used to describe as almost impossibly varied and complicated set of behaviors. Criminal acts have serious consequences. They require the criminal to do something that puts himself at great personal peril. To say someone is a criminal is to say that he or she is evil, or violent, or dangerous, or dishonest, or unstable, or any combination of any of those things, none of which is a psychological state that would seem to be transmitted casually from one person to another. Criminal do not, in other words, criminal do not sound like the kind of people who could be swept by the infectious winds of an epidemic. Yet, somehow, in New York City, this is exactly what occurred. In the year between the beginning and the middle of the 1990s, New York City did not get a population transplant. Nobody went out into the street and successfully taught every would-be delinquent the distinction between right and wrong. There were just as many psychologically damaged people, criminally inclined people, living in the city at the peak of the crime wave as in the slow. But for some reason, tens of thousands of those people suddenly stopped committing crime. In 1984, the encounter between an angry subway rider and four young black youths led to bloodshed. Today, in New York subways, the same encounter doesn't lead to violence anymore. How did that happen? The answer lies in the third of the principle of epidemic transmission, the power of context. The role of the few looked at the kind of people who are critical in spreading information. The chapter 1, Sesame Street and Blue's Clues, look at the question of stickiness, suggesting that in order to be capable of sparkling epidemic, ideas have to be memorable and move us to action. If we look at the people who spread ideas, and if we look at the characteristics of successful ideas, but the subject of this chapter, the power of context, is no less important than the first two. Epidemics are sensitive to the conditions and circumstances of the times and place in which they occur. In Baltimore, syphilis spread far more in the summer than in the winter. Hush puppies took off because they were being worn by kids in the cutting-edge Pince precinct of the West Village, an environment that helped others to look at the shoes in a new light. He could even argue that the success of Paul Leverage Ride in some way owed itself to the fact that it was made at night. At night, people are home in bed, which make them be awful lot easier to reach than if they are up on errand or walking in the fields. And if someone wakes us up to tell us something, we automatically assume the news is going to be urgent. One can only imagine how Paul Revere afternoon ride might have compared. This much, I think, this much is relatively straightforward. But the lesson of the power of context is that we are more than just sensitive to changes in context. We are exquisitely sensitive to them, and the kinds of contextual changes that are capable of tipping of epidemics are very different than we might ordinarily suspect.